Today's question is about human sexuality. So, this isn't G-rated. If you're watching this and you're underage, you should ask your parents first. Here's the question that is posed to me on a regular basis. Why are all men dogs? In particular, this came out around Tiger Woods, and I'm not here to pick on Tiger Woods. Probably the media and his own lifestyle have done an adequate job of that. But what is it that drives men? And why are they the way they are? And you really need a big story to understand how people function. And so I'm going to answer this. It's going to be a little longer thing today. So I hope you'll stay and watch, because how is it that people are made, and how does our brokenness in being separated from God, sin, this thing that happened with Adam and Eve in the garden, how does all of that kind of work together to make us how we are? See, the big story is God made human beings. It starts with Adam and Eve, and it progresses from there. But Adam and Eve wander away from God. And it talks about how men's passion would be toward what they do for a living, and women's passion would be toward their husband, but they're kind of opposite paths. So here's the good thing about men, because you may be wondering. The good thing about men is a man can be estranged from his wife. He can be feeling very unloved, but all he really needs to do is have intimate sexual relations with her, and it's all back on the page for him. He's ready to go. Whereas women, not so much. That's the beauty of how God made men. They're kind of hunter-warriors, and if they applied that hunter and warrior thing in a relationship, it wouldn't be good. There'd probably be a lot of dead women around, and there are abusive people, and that's for another day. But how God made men is that even though they hunt and they fight and they do all of those things, that when they are intimate physically, they forget all of those problems, and they forgive. Now, women, if you're watching, you know that you talk about it a lot, and you think about it, and you commiserate about it. And even after you think you've worked through something, you still fuss and fume over it. And so there's this beautiful thing in the way God made men, that they're quite easy to turn, and they quickly move on just based on this little event. But here's what happens. When men and women have walked away from God, and all of us are born into this brokenness, this word called sin, we're all broken. And so the way that brokenness affects this part of who men are is when they feel alone, and when they feel disconnected, and they want to make that connection. It can happen very quickly based on their experience through a sexual encounter. And so if something's broken in their marriage or somewhere else, then they want to fix it. And this is the quickest way for them to fix it. The problem is, and this is a big problem, they can keep doing this over and over. And outside of the context of a committed marriage, this ability for sex to make a man feel good doesn't have a long-lasting effect in a relationship. And so it's broken. And so what men do is they have to escalate the number of times they have this ecstatic experience. And so now they go from fixing a relationship that's broken, and they move to where they're not fixing anything anymore. They're needing one more fix. And it becomes like a drug that doesn't satisfy. And so you see where men get involved in pornography, and then with women and all kinds of different things, really perverted stuff that people even make movies about, because they need one more fix, but the last fix isn't good enough. And the next one needs to be better and better and better. And so that thing that God made in men to heal a relationship and to bring a man and a woman together, and I'm talking about it from the man's perspective, that thing starts to get distorted, and it goes away. And so now people need all, and men in particular, men need all of these things. All of the, they need more stimulation and more variety. And then they walk away and they feel guilty every time. And they feel down. And this is where evil comes in. And the devil whispers in these men's ears, and he says, see, you're no good. You're weak. You can't do it on your own. But when they're feeling down before they participate in these behaviors, that same voice speaks into them. And I've heard this from dozens of people, hundreds really. And here's what the voice says before. You know you need this. You need to do it. And when you do this, you're going to feel better. You should do this right now because it'll make you feel so much better. And as soon as you're done, the voice says, see how weak you are? No wonder no one really loves you. No wonder you're not in a relationship. God couldn't even love you. Who could love someone like you? Because that's how evil speaks into human souls. And so, because of this depression and this kind of angst about having failed, what happens? The behavior happens with greater and greater frequency, but then satisfaction no longer comes from that. A friend of mine from many years ago got very involved in pornography, and it cost him his marriage. And one of the signs that his wife was told to look for by a friend who'd gone through the same thing was his inability to perform in the marriage bed. Because his body became and his mind so conditioned to these other influences that what happens is what God intended is no longer beautiful or stimulating because all these other things have made a substitute for it. And so he trades a beautiful woman who's committed her life to him for a picture on a screen, or someone that you hire on a street corner. That's how it gets broken. The question is, then, how do you redeem it? Watch the next one, part 2.